Broadcasting from the Hip Hop Weekly Studios, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Civic Cipher, where our mission is to foster allyship, empathy, and understanding. I am your host, Ramses Ja.
He is Ramses Ja. I am Q Ward. You are tuned in to Civic Cipher.
Yes, you are, and we appreciate you tuning in because today we're gonna learn something. We have a new teacher, a new instructor in the building. She goes by the name of Zenia Perez, and she's an organizer and political consultant working in the fields of advocacy and electoral politics. You can find her on social media, that is TikTok and Instagram, specifically at Your Political Prima. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And around here with me and Q, it's business as usual. So we have I'm really excited for our Baba segment because there was an epic takedown of a young man in Virginia that I think that folks need to stick around for because it was inspirational, and it's really kind of what we need nowadays. And I know for you, Q, because you haven't heard it yet, so this is kind of my surprise to you, that with a lot of the things that you've been dealing with in your life, especially under the new administration, and the emboldening of really some of the worst facets of this country, it's really exciting to see, people resisting that shift in the culture in this country. And so I'm excited to share that with you, and we're excited to learn. Zenia also is going to be talking to us about really getting involved on the ground and making some changes in ways that you can in your own community. So this is kind of what we need to do now in order to resist what many people consider to be an oppressive administration, and so is what we'll do and so much more. But before we get there, it is time for some Ebony Excellence.
Shall we?
Yes, we shall. And today's Ebony Excellence, we're shouting out Shabuzi. I don't know if you saw Shabuzi's side eye at the American Music Awards, but I will share with you. This comes from the National Black Guide. Shabuzi, the Nigerian-American country artist, addressed a viral moment from the 2025 American Music Awards, where he reacted to co-presenter Megan Maroney's claim that the Carter family basically invented country music. During the presentation of the Favorite Country Duo or Group Award, Shabuzi gave a noticeable side-eye and chuckle in response to Maroney's statement. The following day, he took to social media to highlight the significant yet often overlooked contributions of black musicians to the genre. He emphasized the influence of artists like Leslie Riddle, who collaborated with the Carter family, as well as Rufus Teapot Payne, Gus Cannon, and DeFord Bailey, all of whom played foundational roles in shaping country music. Shabuzi's remarks have reignited discussions about the historical erasure of black artists in country music. He pointed out that while the Carter family is celebrated, the black musicians who influenced them often remain unrecognized. This conversation aligns with a broader movement to acknowledge and celebrate the diverse roots of country music, a theme also explored in Beyonce's Cowboy Carter album, which features Shabuzi and pays tribute to trailblazers like Linda Martell. So, around here we haven't been able to really give Shabuzi his flowers. He is definitely Ebony Excellence, and it's fitting that the first time that we're able to do it is because he's taking, he's using his platform and the stage to resist, even if it's in a small way. I do recognize he's kind of a lone, figure in that world, in a manner of speaking, but I love the fact that he gave that little side eye and elaborated. So.
Amen.
All right, so Zenia Perez, welcome to the show. Thank you for taking the time to come talk to us. I know that this kind of came together quickly, but I do appreciate you coming on here. So allow me to share with you kind of a little bit about us, and then we'll get a little bit more about you. Okay. So Q and I, we felt that this show was necessary because in particular on hip hop stations around the country, there's a lot of, celebration of black culture, black music, black art, but not a lot in the way of the advancement of a decidedly black political agenda or the galvanization of black folks behind causes that would benefit black and adjacent, namely brown and other marginalized communities. And so we created this show to highlight people who are actually doing the work and give them a platform to share their stories. And so while Q and I do a great job, I believe, of kind of taking care of this space, it was built for you because you're the person that is out there actually making things happen. And what you're going to do today is teach us and our listeners all about that. So before we get to that, do us a favor and just kind of introduce yourself beyond kind of the brief introduction that we gave you.
Well, I was born and raised in the county of Dade, to quote a rapper from Miami.
We like rappers around here, so
Yeah.
I don't know which great philosopher.
Okay, I'll say
one.
it's Rick Ross. Like he claims us. I don't know if we claim him, but So I was born and raised in the county of Dade, like Miami-Dade County. Mm-hmm. It's just this really great melting pot. Like you think it's very Latino, and yes, it is, but it's a city built by Black Bahamians, mm-hmm. and it grew with our different waves of immigrants. And so we've got all sorts of different immigrants, and not all Latinos are a monolith. And so you have the city just being shaped in different ways, and that kind of just made me a very curious person. So when I got to college, my parents were like, you got to make money. And I was like, no, I got to do something I love. So I studied anthropology, and that ended up, me serving in the Peace Corps, on the sugarcane plantations of the Dominican Republic. It was kind of like modern day slavery, but that's a feature of capitalism, I guess. And then I came back to the States. And when you go through an experience like that, you come back a changed person. And I was coming back to what was the birth of Black Lives Matter. We didn't know at that moment, but George Zimmerman, a Latino, mind you, had just murdered Trayvon Martin. And when I saw his high school ID, I had the same high school ID. My brother had the same high school ID. Like in Florida, it's hot as heck outside, so they blast that AC. We all go to school with our hoodies. That could have been me. That could have been my brother. And so, that wouldn't just hurt me in the feels. And going through an experience like the Peace Corps, living amongst marginalized communities, I was living with people of Haitian descent in a Latino culture that was very anti-Black, even though most of Dominicans, are Black. And I remember going back on a trip to visit my people in the Dominican Republic, and they were like, how can you say the U.S. is the best country in the world? Like, look at this, Zenia. Like, what do you mean? And we all thought in that moment, like, that's it. America's no longer racist. President Obama is our president. Like, that's it. We did it. Like, let's check this off. We were very, very wrong. A lot of people, a lot of organizers were like, we did it, and they turned away. We lost the midterms, but then, and so, by my own students, they made me realize that America had things that we needed to work on. Right, but it's a journey, not a destination. And when I got back, I just could not go back to my daily grind. I ended up finding my way into politics. It kind of found me, and so I got heavily involved in the Bernie campaign. After that, I worked at Justice Democrats. We got AOC elected. After that, I worked in labor and did some cool stuff with really cool people working in retail and private-owned equity. And now I'm here working on advocating for DEI, which I can tell you my career has been kind of meeting the political moment in a very interesting way. But
listening to your story and how synonymous it is with ours, like these moments in history that happened that kind of shaped our view and took us from something that was adjacent by the nature of who we are to something direct. We were hip-hop radio DJs. We did a hip-hop radio show.
Right.
Exactly what you think when you hear a hip-hop radio show.
Right. Your
favorite hip-hop artists, concert ticket giveaways, us popping up at your local high school or local concert outside with tents and speakers and our turntables, at your local nightclub, and for both of us in the arena with the local NBA team. And similar to that kind of birthing of Black Lives Matter with George Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin was George Floyd years later. And that happening at the same time as COVID-19, the world was in a very unique place to be able to respond and mobilize during that movement in a way that, not before or since have we been so available, so off work, so out of school, so, so in tune. And everybody was outside for seemingly the same reason. And it was impossible to ignore. And having conversations about what the world was dealing with and what we saw in the streets as we protested and as we marched got our hands slapped a little bit at the radio station. And we went from entertainers to a moment and a decision turning us into activists. And like Ram just said, the idea for this show was that we're DJs. We're not experts in this field. We don't do this work, but we know people that do. And they deserve a platform and to have their voices and their messages amplified. Little did we know that we would be joining in on that fight because, the moment decided that for us.
Right.
The moment decided that, and then Ramses decided it for us. Specifically resigning from the radio station that we were at because they decided in that moment that they wouldn't live up to it. They would not answer the call, and black was too much for them. Almost specifically, they don't want to do a black show were the words that they used. And Ramses knew in that moment that the decision had to be made that we would go a different way. It's a full circle moment to almost have someone like Ramses said that we built this whole thing for sitting here with us. Someone who's doing the work, someone who's experienced life in a way that has kind of ingrained empathy into your heart, into your mind. The decisions that you make are based on that because you went to university and got a degree and you could have chased the capitalistic dream and done something to make far more money than you make doing the type of work that you do. So we can't express our gratitude enough for you making decisions really based on wanting to take care of and show up for everybody else. From Dade County to a red border state to visit two hip hop DJs and have a conversation. That's a heck of a story. Making the decisions for that to be career. How did you get there? Like, our decision was kind of made for us. What was the kind of lightning in the bottle moment that said to you, okay, this is what I need to do moving forward? Because from the Peace Corps to now being an organizer, that's, there are adjacent things, but there's a bridge that you had to cross to get where you are now.
My parents, I think they asked themselves this very thing, and they're like, how did you get here? And how could I not, is what I asked them. Like, I think our lives are so political, and what politics ought to be is just people getting their basic needs met and then some. And I think we kind of like forget that here in this country. And I tell my parents, I'm like, I work in politics because I grew up in Miami. Like, I grew up protesting Fidel Castro. We would walk to the Orange Bowl, fill that Orange Bowl, and we would stomp our feet and we would chant Cuba sí, Castro no. And, when, similar to what we're seeing in Palestine, like, we had groups that would deliver aid to the people in Cuba, and the Cuban government shot those rescue planes down, and people were up in arms. Like, people in Miami are always upset about something, and we're always gonna fight for what's rightfully ours. Maybe it's because, like, there's all, like, our politicians are Latino and we are Latino, and and so we feel comfortable telling this country what we deserve and what we need because, like, our legislators look like us. And so, like, I grew up poor, and and yes, my life was hard, but I didn't have this notion that I could not be what I wanted to be. I just didn't know where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. I mean, who does, really? And so, like, that's how I ended up in politics. Like, I realized that there were people who just weren't given a fair shake. And in this land of opportunity, we all deserve that. And then some. You know, if we all prosper, like, we all get to benefit from that. If we all, like, have our basic needs met, like housing, food, shelter, healthcare, then imagine, like, this beautiful world we could be living in, instead of, like, this scarcity that we have been trained and conditioned, groomed even through our own education system, our own politicians. But the thing about America, the beauty of America, is that when something's wrong, like when my parents gave me the ride to the airport, I was telling them, like, this is what I do for work. And we were talking about parental leave. And my dad was like, well, I didn't have parental leave when I was, when we had you. And I was like, yeah, and that's terrible. Like, that's bad for you, for your ability to bond with us. And it's bad for the mother because she's more likely to have postpartum. And so, you know what? My brother now had parental leave. He had, and guess what? Like, they're all thriving because they all had that together. And because we get to fight for things that matter and make these families, all families, like, healthy, like, that's what makes America great. Like, America's been great because we're a country where we get to, like, shape it the way that we want. Like, we don't have to ask for permission. Like, that's just our job.
Well, speaking of shaping the country the way that we want, I want to get into the weeds a bit in terms of, like, what it is that you actually do. So earlier, you know, I said that you work in the fields of advocacy and electoral politics. Okay. So make that live for us a little bit. Talk to us about what electoral politics means, and talk to us a bit about what advocacy means, just so that people kind of get an idea of what the work entails.
So, you know, I'll talk to you as if, like, I'm talking to my parents.
Please.
Electoral politics means that I'm trying to get somebody elected because I want to have a certain agenda pushed. Okay. And so that means I'm going to be knocking doors. I'm going to be having conversations with people, with my end goal being that we get this person elected, or we get this ballot measure pushed through and voted into, you know, whatever it is, whatever state. And so that's kind of the electoral side. The advocacy side is where you have a cause. And I'll give you the example of when I worked in labor, we had people who were losing their jobs. And this was because private equity owned a lot of retail at the time, and they were shutting down during the pandemic, not giving anyone any kind of warning, and things were really tough during the pandemic. A lot of people suffered, and so we got those people who had been laid off, and they advocated and they pushed for a law that if you have this massive layoff, you get a severance paycheck. And we passed that first law. Okay, so that's like one example of what advocacy look like. It can look like a lot of things. It could be calling your legislator and telling them that you don't want to have Medicaid cut because it pays for all of the nursing homes in Florida. That's what that looks like. But there's people behind that, like setting up those scripts so that you can call and setting up the phone numbers. And so, like, there's us doing that. So there's that big picture, that big legislative one that we have, that I just showed you. But then behind the scenes, like, there's people knocking on the door. There's people like trying to get you onto your side to either explain that cause or just like making it happen, so that you can do education, or you can do like mobilization where you get people, you know, maybe just packing the house at your city hall, that sort of thing. And then the reason I do these two things is because, like, if I have a bill, like, let's say I want to have, you know, I don't want people to, you know, in the US, you're more likely to become homeless from a cancer diagnosis than you are ever to become a millionaire, billionaire, right? And so I think it's a tragedy that we don't have, that everyone doesn't have equitable access to healthcare. So I might want to, you know, advocate, get you all to like call in and push for Medicaid, expansion. Just we all deserve a safety net. And then, but I want people on the other side that are sitting in office, those legislators, those lawmakers. And so like, I need those people in office. I need to get them elected so that when I do this advocacy work, like I have those allies, I have those people. So like those two things kind of work hand in hand.
I love that.
Some people work both sides, some people only work one side, but I've been fortunate enough to have experience doing both.
Okay. You want me to?
Please.
Yeah. So, you mentioned a couple of the campaigns. You mentioned the labor thing. You mentioned AOC. Talk about some of the other things and other people that you've worked with, because I want to say that I'm connecting you mentally with like Stacey Abrams and maybe some other things. So let's let people know just how far this goes or can go.
Yeah, like we like to say as organizers that if you don't have a seat at the table, you're likely going to be at the menu.
Ooh.
So bring a folding chair with you.
Ooh.
Right? I have a friend who I think her firm is called like Folding Chair, Consulting, something like that. And like you just, in this country, we don't have to ask for permission, or we should not be
required
groomed to think that way. Like, this is the United States of America, for the people, by the people. And so like, I think the way, maybe it's our education system, I don't know why, but I think civic engagement, it's like this very foreign thing. Like, how are laws made? What is the job of a politician? It's this weird foreign concept. And I think it's like that by design, because I think they don't, the powers that be, or, very powerful corporations, they don't want you to know how powerful you are. Like, at the end of the day, we pay their bills because we pay our taxes. So like, politicians should be scared of us, not because I'm condoning political violence or anything, but because like we can get upset and vote them out. Yeah.
Let me I want this to live too, so my bad for jumping in front of you, but under an administration like this one, obviously there's some people that think this administration is great. And there are some people that think that this administration is hostile, right? For those people that feel like this administration is hostile, but they themselves, they want to do something, they want to make some changes, they want to get out there and be active, but it's not for that. Like, they're not a politician, they're not going to, and they're going to vote, of course, but they can't vote for another 2 years or 4 years or whatever. It sounds like there's a place, based on what you're saying, there's a place for those people.
Yeah.
So talk to us about how easy or challenging it might be to become a political organizer or an advocacy or to support electoral politics. Like, what does a person go through to become their city's version of you, or their community's version of you? You
just have to find your people, find your cause, and find your people. Like, no one can do it alone. I know this country preaches rugged individualism, but humans, we are social creatures. Like, and when I was taught about organizing, you have to like remember buy-in and just make sure like everyone's like bought into your cause, your mission. And so like, ask yourself, like, what is important to you? For me right now, it's saving the Peace Corps from, the like demonic grips of Doge and Elon Musk. And so, and it's also like mental health. The National Alliance for Mental Health also has given a lot to me in this work. I've burned out and stuff, but those are like my two passion projects right now.
Okay, yeah.
And so find your passion projects, and those people, there will be people there for you. And if you're not sure, of course, hit me up, Your Political Prima, on Instagram, TikTok, and I'll help you find your people. But like, find your community or create it. and get together with your friends, your family, your neighbors, or or an existing organization, because we're always looking for people to come work with us, volunteer their time, or just like pick up the slack that your representatives might be like putting down.
And this is like knocking doors, making phone calls.
Yeah, you can knock doors, make phone calls, like all these things. Like you can do it yourself or find a place that does it, because like there's always work. We're a work in progress, the U.S., and just find your people and find your happy place. And
so you mentioned earlier you spent some time living in the Midwest. I'm from Detroit, Michigan, so I'm a proud Midwesterner. You may have gotten to be in close proximity of some of the MAGA movement.
Yeah.
What are some common things you think people misunderstand about Make America Great Again, folks?
We only got like 30 seconds.
Oh, gosh.
Go ahead.
I think both parties have failed the people. I think there is just so much money in politics, and I won't get into it, but I think both parties are failing the people, and there's hurt in the Midwest like no other, and like our systems are failing us because they're rigged against us, but we write the rules in this country. If something's not serving us, we can change that. That's what makes America beautiful. And so, yeah, the pain that I've seen in MAGA is because corporations, the corporate greed. At the end of the day, it's corporate greed. It's corporate greed that got this man elected into office. It's, but don't lose hope. Like, this is a country of very willing people, and we just got to find our people.
Well, that's not the first time we've heard that argument, but it was well stated, so we appreciate it.